The AFIB Show brings you stories, interviews, lifestyle coaching, and information meant entirely for those with atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, troublesome ectopic beats, or other heart rhythm disturbances.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself to be the best, die with no regrets. Live with every breath, see my message start to spread. And I had so many dreams, then you hit your teens. Life ain't really what it seems, try to find out what it means. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Okay, AFIBers, it's time. Let's go live with Big Northern Bear.
I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a path, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to I don't want no fake love, I want the real stuff. Everybody listen up, cause I'll only say it once. I'm gonna show you all the path, if you want it bad. I'm gonna show you where it's at, yeah, how you can get it back, yeah, cause
I'm happy to be here with Steve because his story reminds me a bit of mine, okay? Because it was around the same time that his AFib came upon him, around the same time that mine did, and he's adopted a lot of the same lifestyle measures. So I want to hear all about that. So Steve, if you could just walk us through what it was, what went on in your life when AFib first introduced itself.
Okay, so you can hear me all right, Northern Bear?
Yes.
Okay, perfectly. So I'm going to go back to 2019 or so. Was 35 pounds to 40 pounds heavier than I currently am. Had some minor chest pains during stressful times, but like everybody else, didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. October of 2019, I decided to make the lifestyle changes that were required to be a better person, healthier, and noticed that, I did the best that I could. And when we got into COVID is really when I really put the biggest focus on all of the factors, the exercise, the meditation, eating better. I'm trying to follow a Mediterranean style diet and started losing the weight. And as I did that, I became more involved in cycling, and I became more involved actually in racing of cycling. So cycling, racing. And I think the biggest factor, the most concerning one would be in the winter of 2021, I would do races online, and I would see that my heart rate, which I monitor with a heart rate monitor and is directly in front of the screen and monitor that I use,
Right.
My heart would get 160, 170, which is not a big concern when you're doing that.
Right.
But when you would finish, and at the end of the ride, which could be 45 minutes to an hour, my heart rate never really dropped back to a normal rhythm or heart rate of like 72 to 75. I would stay at 130 for the rest of the day or rest of the evening. And that's when I started having concerns. And then, one of the things we'll talk about is I do long distance riding in the summer. And I did the Ride to Conquer Cancer, which is in June every year and is in June of this year. Did the ride, and again, tracked my heart rate during the ride on my computer of my bike, got off, and 2 days later, my heart rate was still 135 to 140. One of the things that I think that's been a real big lifesaver for me is having an Apple Watch that gives you a notification of an AFib occurrence and allows you to make a PDF of it and email that. So I did have a relationship with my cardiologist, and I sent it to him.
Oh,
I said,
nice.
Yeah, it's really been beneficial. And I sent that to him. I said, I don't understand why my heart rate's not dropping back to a normal rhythm or a normal number. And I finished on the Sunday. By the Wednesday, I was in front of him and said, "Yeah, I'm pretty confident that you have AFib, and I will direct you to St. Mike's where the specialist is, which happens to be a cyclist as well. So we had a fair amount in common. And from that point in time, I've been in the care of St. Mike's and for my AFib. And in the last 6 months, we've worked on different medications, things that you and I've talked about. And I think as of like the last 10 days, I finally got a better handle on it because between January of this year and probably mid-March, I was always in a constant state of AFib.
Wow.
Yeah, so it
So
wasn't like
were you able to like do your exercise and everything with AFib?
absolutely.
Yeah, so we're quite different in that regard because when mine's on me, I'm just useless.
Yeah.
You know, I bet now that I developed cardio though, it's a whole different picture. So maybe your cardio was probably better than mine when you first had AFib because my cardio was hits. But were you doing much exercise prior?
I played soccer a lot in my 30s. I did cycle, but I wasn't as focused as I am now. And I was the kind of guy that would lose 60 pounds a year. It would just be 15 pounds on, 15 pounds off. I would cycle between that.
Right.
Um, so yes, I was focused on it, but not anywhere to what I am right now. And that's maybe a topic for another day is how to track your fitness and where you see the benefits from using different type of wearables
Yeah.
from like Aura rings and Apple watches and certain
What's a
portable.
wait? What's an Aura ring?
So an Aura ring is a really cool ring
Oh wow!
that
Look at that.
yeah, it's really fascinating. So it's a sleep monitor, and
Yeah.
I know one day we'll probably talk about sleep apnea, but it's a sleep monitor, but also tracks all of the other things related to your heart, including your HRV, including your lowest heart rate while you're sleeping, your different sleep stages, things like
Oh.
that. And then there's an app that it comes with, and then you can evaluate and monitor that and see if you're seeing any improvements.
Well, Lisa, since you're still listening, my birthday's coming up, so Aura ring.
An Aura ring, Oura.
OURA. Well, they just
Yeah.
got a free plug.
Yes, they did.
So I love gadgets, man. Like we're so blessed to live in an age where we have these wearables. Blood sugar, pulse, blood oxygen saturation. You know, like and now you've got the sleep monitor, pill reminders, track everything, connect it to your fitness app. Like I have Bluetooth running shoes that track my cadence and if I'm on the treadmill with my Bluetooth running shoes, I don't have to enter the mileage after. It actually knows probably within 1% when I'm
Yes.
done of
Yeah.
how far I've gone. So like we're just in that age and now they're going to pair AI up with all that. So they're either going to make us really healthy or rule over us. I haven't figured out which yet.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But
So I do the same thing. So I have the tracker on my shoe. I play pickleball,
right.
and it actually measures during a 2-hour pickleball session the distance that you go. And
Yeah.
then when you monitor that with your Apple Watch or your Aura Ring, because it measures activity, you can actually see all those things that are really important. Which, at
Wow.
the end of the day, to get back to your original question, it have led me on to be able to monitor and measure the journey of being in a fitter place. Um, and when you add the tracking of your food, which again is probably another conversation for another day, but when you add that piece to it, so you can measure what your caloric intake is and your carbs and all those things, it
Right.
allows that journey to be that much more interesting because you can monitor, track, and evaluate how you're doing. And I've used all of those things over the last 3 years,
Yeah.
as well as being motivated by people like you, which I think is another big factor. Because I think when we talk about the yo-yo dieting or things like that, when you can find someone or people in general that have a similar interest or similar, challenges. And I do remember the very first video that I ever saw with you. I found it very motivating. You were having a great conversation while you were on your treadmill, and I think it was
Oh
about.
yes.
And I think that was one of the ones that really said, this is a guy that I want to follow. This is a guy that I think I can learn from. And that's when I subscribed. And I'm happy to say that you're
Thanks.
now at 1,000 subscribers. That's pretty impressive. So you're
That's the
motivated.
video that launched the channel actually because do you know the story about why I made that video? I'll
No,
give it
please,
to you in 30 seconds.
please.
So I'm in these Facebook groups for AFib and everyone's like just always in a panic because their heart's kicking up and doing some pitter patters and ectopic beats. And I'm not trying to diminish how they feel, because I know it's really scary. And I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing my thing and I'm thinking about how far I've come, and I'm like, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna make a video talking on the treadmill about how far I've come, and I can just upload it to YouTube and I'll share it in the Facebook group and I'll say, for all you people afraid to exercise. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and I
And
found it very motivating.
I got thousands of comments. I'm like, okay, I think I'm doing a YouTube channel now. Like, I just got so much. Like, the feedback you see on YouTube is 1% of what I got on Facebook. But then the moderator said, hey, you can't self-promote in our groups, so I stopped posting videos there. So, yeah, but no, thank you. I've actually, I think that's how most people came across me. But so that, but you went through the lockdown. I mean, Ontario, we were one of the most locked down regions in, I believe, the world, for sure North America. So, I mean, is that why you just started with the indoor biking? And was it just or was it because you had these devices and they're like counting your steps, so you want to just push yourself to go a little bit further on your steps, and or how did it all come together?
Well, during COVID, the one thing that, as you talk about in Ontario from a shutdown point of view, I never left work. I'm a general manager of a car dealership. I worked every day because we were deemed an essential service because people needed to be able to get their cars serviced.
Yeah.
So I was at work every day, but our hours were shortened. We worked from 9 till 4 during that time frame. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would come home and I would ride. And that was my escapism from the challenges of COVID. So while we had good sunlight, I'd be out on my bike, either mountain biking or road biking, and that kept me sane, and that kept me going through that, and it also kept my focus on my weight as well as everything else that I was doing, which again I tracked and monitored. So I was very fortunate from that perspective that I had that way that I did work, and two, that I was able to get out and ride.
And have you read that book, The AFib Cure?
I've downloaded the first three chapters, but I don't think I've read past that. Do you recommend it?
I can loan it to you.
Okay.
Absolutely. But one of the case studies that sort of convinced me to go buy the Apple Watch was the AFib Cure, because he talks about this one patient who actually ended up running his Facebook group for him, but she tracked everything in Google Sheets, like everything, had spreadsheets galore. And I just think that the more people are tracking their stuff in general, the more motivated they become to achieve their goals, right? Because my experience is, if I'm tracking let's say I'm tracking my calories, I'm tracking my steps, I'm tracking my body weight, I'm tracking workouts per week, and two other things that are easy to track thanks to our wearables. So it's like every day I'm getting like, oh, you beat a new this. Oh, you got to a new that. It's like you get this constant positive feedback. And so the more you can sort of track on autopilot, the more it sort of builds a feedback mechanism back into your habits, and that solidifies them into a routine. So I'm not surprised to hear that, the Apple Watch was working for you. So you dove in and got the ring, and you got the thing that connects to your shoes. And
well, there's another little piece of that I think is another one. And again, I think all of these could be separate conversations on their own, but there is an app called Strava. Strava is a tracker of your fitness, but it's very similar because it has a social component to it. So once you do a workout, and I've been doing a fair amount of weight training, different than yours, but still weight training. When I finish it, it's automatically uploaded. And then other people that follow me or that I follow can give you kudos.
Yeah.
So
I actually want to get into that, but because almost all my running's indoors.
Yeah.
I heard it. You don't sort of get the bragging rights if it's an indoor workout because they can't validate. I don't know, but
no, they do. It will.
Will it? Okay, maybe I should.
It will do all of that. So if I take my dog for a walk, I can upload it. It's nothing to it. It's you start it off your Apple Watch.
Yeah.
There's a monthly subscription. If you were running on the treadmill, it's the same thing. And the minute you finish, you save it. It measures your heart rate. I mean, it's got all of the things, all of the KPIs that you'd want to have.
I'll look into it. I got to make sure it links with My Fitness, though, because I have like 2 years of data on my My Fitness. I don't want to leave that behind. So I mean, I would rather just maintain my ecosystem than get, because I get lots of social exposure
I'm sure you do.
already.
I'm sure you do.
But it would be kind of fun to be on Strava and just like even just friend a couple of people from the show who are on there.
Yeah. Well,
So
there's another little piece of it that I think that you'd find beneficial.
okay.
If you ever went to somewhere where you haven't been to before, you can look for specific maps that other people that
Oh
have
yeah,
lived.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and then you can download that app and be
yeah.
able to follow it, and it will say, 200 meters, turn right for five
Nice.
kilometers. So yeah, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I think where we're talking about is there's a lot of things that are allowing you to be accountable to other people and also to be accountable to yourself and to keep you motivated all the time. And that's what I think the biggest factor has been for me. I track all this stuff because I want to be healthier. I want to
Yeah.
work with my AFib, but it's also nice to have that social connection with other people.
Absolutely. And I think too, this is where if someone is like really trying to turn their life around, that's where you want to do some honest soul searching, right? Because I mean, we all like to think that all we personally need is internal validation. But we have to admit that there's a percentage of us out there that needs some level of external validation to keep motivated. And I've looked and I've realized I'm one of those people, and I get a little bit of that from YouTube, but I also just like, it's probably why I don't have a home gym for my weights at this point, because I like being in the gym and I like being next to the 25-year-old buff bodybuilder and bench more than him. Like, I just like that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be so motivated probably if it was, but with the running, because I'm slow, I got no problem running here by myself, right? So I think people, you got to look deep inside. What kicks you into gear? What does that for you? And it sounds like you're quite in touch with yourself, and you set up your ecosystem to build that positive feedback cycle.
Absolutely. So I think you and I are more alike than we know. So I do have a small home gym, but I do go 3 times a week to F45. I think I mentioned that to you in the past.
It's
And
like CrossFit, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. But you see the same people every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and you say,
Yeah.
"Hey, how you doing?" At the end of the day, if your workout, you give them a high five. A lot of the people you don't even know their name,
Yeah.
but you feel accountable to them a little bit, and you also feel it's part of your social network, and you also feel that if I'm improving, they're improving, and you want to be there for them, and they're there for you. And sometimes the smallest little thing, because we all sometimes don't want to go to workout. I don't want to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so easy to stay in bed and say I'm not going to go. But at the end of the day, when someone gives you a high five and you go, "Hey, I looked that person in the eye. I think I made a little bit of a difference for them today." It's just one more thing to give you that reason to feel that much better about yourself and to continue on your journey. And that's the biggest part for me. I don't want to ever stop doing the things that I'm doing. And one of the benefits is my AFib is getting better. But
Right.
all of these things is the journey to live to, I'd like to live to 100 years old. And I want to be there for my great great grandkids. And as much as I don't talk very often about that, and it's funny, I'm talking on a YouTube video about it, but I want to be there for the long haul because we've all worked very, very hard. And there's a lot of times when people get to 60 and they slow down. And I
Yeah.
think that 60 is a great time to enjoy your life and to continue pushing
Right.
and to be there for the long term.
Well, I think like 60 is almost a new 40, as they say.
Yes, I agree.
Like really, I mean, with what you can do and the medical procedures available. Like 20 years ago, ablation was cutting edge. Now it's routine. I mean, it's 60 can absolutely be the new 40. And there's like YouTube channels with 75-year-old bodybuilders that are all ripped up.
Yeah,
There's I hate to say age is not an excuse, because age obviously leaves you vulnerable to injury. You got to be smarter about it. You have to be a little more patient. But age can be an advantage because you're more settled in career, and your kids are doing stuff on their own now, and so you can you have the advantage of hopefully being able to really invest in yourself a bit now.
agreed. You don't
Yeah,
feel guilty about having to do stuff for yourself because you have young kids at home, which I think we all did. But my kids have graduated from university. They've gone on.
yeah,
My son obviously helped us out with the audio tonight. He lives at home with me,
yeah.
but
It turns out I was the problem.
I'll let him know that.
Yeah,
But yeah, so like, and it brings up another little thing about keeping motivated, which I think is a very, very big factor. I'm reading a book, and I think I mentioned it to you the last time you and I talked, by Dr. Peter Attia, It's called
Yep.
Longevity,
Yep.
and I'm halfway through it, and it talks about a lot of the things that we're talking about. The last half of it is exercises, and a lot of it is weight training, the stuff that you do.
Yep.
I haven't read that part of it yet, but his goal is to live to 100 and to be, that longevity lifespan when they intersect. You want to make sure that you live as healthy as you can to be able to be as active as you can.
Right.
And as much as I use this
Yeah,
example,
he uses a term, not lifespan, but health span. And I like
correct.
that term. I really
Yeah.
like that term.
Yeah. And, you think of people like, and again, I'm not using her as an example, other than she's a good example because she had the best of everything. But you look at the Queen, she died at 93. She worked 3 days before she died, was involved with her family. Whatever you want to take with that, you have to admit there's an older lady that, when she went in a healthy state, and, she wasn't sitting in a retirement home for 15 years before that, living in an environment where she probably wasn't anywhere as comfortable as
Hey,
she was.
and she caught COVID and went through that, no problem.
Exactly.
She shook that up.
She did.
Yeah.
And so did her husband.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, personally, I don't like the guy, but even the fact that Joe Biden has permanent AFib and he's president.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's had AFib for like 25 years.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, I'm not a fan of Biden, but I admire that.
I admire that.
The fact that it didn't even come up during the campaign, right? The guy's just been carrying on with life and permanent AFib. He's not even on a beta blocker. He's just on a blood thinner.
Very interesting. I had no idea.
I actually read the presidential health report from his annual inspection because when I heard he had AFib, I know they make it public, so I went read it. And good on you, Joe. I mean, you're getting by, and you became president with AFib. So you can become president with permanent AFib. I mean, there's no reason you can't get off your couch and walk a few laps around the block, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now there are some people in really bad shape. They have AFib paired with other stuff, right? And I don't want, if you're listening, don't feel diminished by my comments, but I have this belief that no matter where you are, the one little thing you could do that you're not doing now, and please start doing that. So, I just heard a big bang. I don't know what it was.
I think that was on my end.
Oh, okay, great. So, can you just tell me, like, when are you in AFib right now?
No, it's interesting that you asked me that.
Okay.
Because literally 20 minutes before you and I got together,
yeah,
I on my Apple Watch, I checked it, and I have sinus rhythm. But for the previous 4 months, anytime I would have checked it, any notification I got throughout the night, I was in AFib. But it was never at a very high level. My heart was more out of rhythm between 78 and 108.
Okay. And are you what medication are you on for?
So I have a serious problem of not being able to remember the names of them. So I'm going to rely on you. So dilalafam, what do you call it? We talked about it before.
What's it do? You tell me what it's doing.
One's a rhythm. One drops your heart rate.
Okay, beta blocker. One's a beta blocker.
Right. And the other is keeps your rhythm in check.
Okay, so an antidysrhythmic. So
right.
I don't know much about the individual types, but those are the big broad categories.
Right.
So
I've got them here. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll be able to tell you because I knew we'd have this conversation. Okay. And I can never, I was on Metropol, whatever you call
Metoprolol?
Yeah. See, there's another example of me not being able to remember what the names are.
Oh, good.
Okay. So one I take first thing in the morning, and the other one, I take it twice a day, in the morning and at night. Okay, here we go. Flecainide?
Flecainide, yeah, that's what I'm on. Yeah.
Okay, so flecainide I take before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And diltiazem.
Okay.
diltiazem.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, that's a new one on me, but that's okay. I'm not your doctor. So
No, I appreciate that. So I take that first thing in the morning, and I take that at night. And one of the things that we talked about before my cardiologist put me on this is how it would affect my training.
Right.
And they said the one side effect you may find that because your heart rate will be lower, you may not feel that you have the performance that you've had in the past, which I've not found.
Which is bullshit.
Well, I believe it is because I don't have that
Bullshit.
at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't have that problem. So if it's bullshit, it's bullshit. But at the end of the day, it's if it's improved everything for me, and it's not affected my performance from a training perspective whatsoever. Because I'll just give you one quick example. In January, I went to Florida. I rode from Key Largo, Florida, to Key West. It was about 110 miles, maybe 190 kilometers
Right.
over 2 days. And I have a heart rate monitor directly in front of my vision while I'm riding. I was between 172 and 185 for 2 days solid. I
Yeah.
could have a conversation like we're having a conversation. But
Yeah.
now that I'm on both of these, I sit at 125 to 130, and it's the same thing. There's no difference in my performance, but my heart was that much higher in January
Right.
than it is now.
I watched this guy in England. He has a YouTube channel now called Cycling Unleashed, and we crossed paths on the internet somewhere. And anyway, but he has this app, and it on his videos, his cycling videos, he's able to show his heart rate in real time and his watts.
Yeah.
And like the guy's running like 170, 175, and some of us are just wired so differently, right? Like when I'm running, for me, a high heart rate is 145. And I've always been like that. 10 years ago, when I was doing kickboxing, Muay Thai, and I was doing sprints all the time and all the conditioning that went with that, 145, 150, I was like maxing out. And then I watch, like you're at 170. I could never get there. I mean, it's just wired so differently. But I don't think it correlates to your performance as much as people think.
I've only ever had one one episode where it did.
Yeah.
So I now realize I'm sensitive to caffeine. I no longer drink caffeine unless the Leafs are playing and the NFL draft is the same day. And I want
Yeah.
to make sure they don't fall asleep at 10 o'clock, which
Right.
is what yesterday I had a coffee, but I have one coffee every 3 weeks, let's just say. But just to give you
Okay.
an example, I had in 2 summers ago, I had an espresso, went for a cycle with a bunch of other guys. One of the great things when guys go cycling is we stop for coffee.
Right.
Picked up the double espresso, kept riding. Then I took a gel, which happened to have caffeine in it.
Right.
Then I rode up I live near the Niagara Escarpment. I rode up the Niagara Escarpment, got halfway up it, and I looked at my heart rate. I go, I'm at 105, or sorry, 205.
Bit much.
And I got off my bike and I said, no, this isn't safe to do this. And I walked up the rest of the hill. And that's probably the only time that I've had a performance related issue during my time of having AFib. But now that I've cut out all alcohol as well, and I know you did a video on that at one time, correct?
Well, I did a live stream where a fellow was asking me, he was having a hard time getting the monkey off his back, and I cut out that segment into a video
Yes.
and shared my thoughts about it, hopefully in an empathetic way.
Well,
But yeah, I think alcohol is the one undisputable trigger, folks. You can't live in denial of alcohol.
right.
Alcohol is universally, well, whatever your AFib is, it will increase your odds of you going into AFib. You can't
Correct.
ignore that. It's the one universal trigger. It's
So
in every study.
I stopped drinking alcohol as of Super Bowl this year, which just happened to be the same date. I haven't had a drink then, and it's not ever been an issue for me stopping it. But between the caffeine and the alcohol and taking the drugs, as of now, I am in sinus rhythm, although there'll be times that I'll slide out. But right now, I would say it's 50-50, but it's never been an extreme. So I'm hoping things are getting better because I did have the conversation with my doctor about ablation, which I really don't want to do. And it's interesting because I remember watching your video where you left the doctor in Hamilton and you were driving home and you were saying, I can't believe that that's not a suggestion anymore. And you were very emotional about it. And that was one of the videos that I took a lot from. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us because that was a bit of an
Well,
eye-opener for
on
me.
the flip side, you didn't see my interview with Steve that went live this morning. It's 90 minutes long, so you probably haven't had a chance to watch it. But
No.
I am now, and it's in that. I'm going to spoil the ending of that interview, but for reasons I go into that interview. So there's a plug. Go watch AFib patient experience interview, Big Northern Bear. It's looking likely that I will be getting the ablation when my turn comes. Okay. And I'll just short circuit why right now, because my resting heart rate is 36.
That's incredible.
I need to get off the beta blocker.
Okay.
It was 4 months ago, resting heart rate was 39, and then 2 months ago it's 38, and it just every month I'm on the smallest possible dose. So just doing the math, I'm just projecting 6 months ahead. My doctor's concerned. He says, "Well, now your slow heart rate. I'm starting to see actual pauses." And like, well, I don't want to be on a pacemaker. I need to get off this freaking beta blocker.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's partly why I'm training for a half marathon now, because I want to just, give my heart lots of work.
Sure.
But on the flip side, every time my heart improves in fitness, it wants to have a new lower resting heart rate. So,
Well, exactly.
So the only way out of this for me now is starting to look like ablation.
Okay.
So, yeah, and it's just the practical choice, right? And we all come from different places. Like, your resting heart rate is what?
Well, now it's 72.
Right. So before I had this, even when I was a big, heavy fatty, my resting heart rate was only like 52.
That's just incredible. Like, that's hard to believe, because let's be honest, you were a big fella.
It helped me stay in denial, because I would go, "Oh, look at my resting heart rate. It's 52. I must have great cardiovascular fitness."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm running around with blood pressure of like 180 over 125.
Right.
Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's genetic. Like, my wife and her dad, they have a resting heart rate of 100.
Yeah.
And her dad's like the healthiest older guy you'll ever meet. I mean, he's fitter than I am, in his 70s. Resting heart rate, all his brothers were like that. Resting heart rate 100. So it's very genetic.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a very broad range. And I think it's the same when you're exercising. Like, I'll be next to someone on the treadmill. We'll both have our heart rate monitors at the gym, and their heart rate's like 30 beats more than mine. We're going at the same pace. They're thinking I'm super fit. I'm like, no, I'm working just as hard as you, bro. Like,
yeah.
That's just my heart rate.
So you're like in zone 2 for the majority of that.
Well, so for me, the heart rate is an FYI, and the zone I determine by my perceived exertion.
Correct.
Because especially being on the beta blocker, like, my heart rate, if I do my run in the morning, 119 heart rate, compared to doing it late in the afternoon, will be the same exertion as a 135 heart rate.
I've never looked at it that way.
Because my metoprolol is peaking.
Right.
Right? But I'm able to produce the same work and run at the same speed and feel just as worked out, despite the fact I have a lower heart rate. Which is why I say you can't work out on beta blockers is bullshit. And one of my first actual videos that I actually scripted out was how to work out on your beta blockers, and I laid out a full hard training program. Like, do it. Like, it's the same training program you'd give anybody. Yeah. Really. You just need someone to say, yes, you can do this on your beta blockers. Right? So.
And I'm in the same boat. Hey, let me ask you a question. I've never asked this before, if you don't feel comfortable, but is genetically AFib run in your family? No.
I have 20 something aunts and uncles, and one of them has AFib. So and it wasn't until she was over 80 it showed up. So I don't think it runs in my family.
Okay. I think it does run in mine, but my grandfather passed away at 62. Yeah. I think that he did have AFib, but he was also a long distance runner, but he was also a big guy. Right. So I don't know for sure if he did, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And my dad's had an AFib episode.
The genetic test crowd say they've identified a gene that leaves you prone to having AFib. So there's definitely a genetic component, but let's say it is your genes. You can't do anything about that.
No.
So, there's some knowledge that's okay. It's cool to know that about yourself, but it doesn't rightly help you, so, but like, I do have people who tell me, yeah, I had it. My dad had it. His dad had it. Like, I get people saying that to me, and I'm not surprised. I mean, we always say cancer runs in my family because we've had so much cancer through our family. So is cancer genetic? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, you just got to deal with the hand life deals you, I guess.
No question about it.
Yeah. I mean, I would, looking back, I would live my whole life as if I was genetically predisposed to everything and live a lot healthier and eat a lot cleaner and exercise a lot more. So if I just assume that you're you got to be mindful and look out after your health when you're younger, because I mean even now, I mean you probably feel the same. I wish I'd started this 20 years ago.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, because think of all that. Think of where you could be now if you had
Yeah.
started 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I
So
think I think I dabbled in it, and that was my challenge. It wasn't remaining
yeah,
committed to it. I dabbled in it and said, "Oh, this is great. I really like it." And then, and that's another part of this. It's the work-life balance that I let slide, where I focused more on work and not as much on my health. And that during COVID, I think was one of the biggest differences because I couldn't focus as much on work because everything was, in a different place. So it allowed me to give me the time to work on my health.
yeah, yeah, and and for me, it actually had quite the opposite effect. The lockdowns had quite the opposite effect. I was miserable. I was just miserable, feeling sorry for myself, and in a way that helped me because, as I explained in this interview I did yesterday, or this that went live this morning, is I'm one of these guys. I sort of have to hit rock bottom before I actually change, and then when I do, man, there's no stopping me. But it takes a lot to get me, and I think mentally I really hit rock bottom during wave two. I really hit rock bottom.
I think a
And
lot of us are the same way as you. I mean, we need those two or three different things to slap us in the face
yeah,
and to say, however you wanted to define rock bottom. But I think when you see those things and say, oh, because I've had other things um, those things that are wake up calls. I did have the high blood pressure. I was getting migraines, and that was one of the things that was a wake up call for me. Waking up with a migraine in the morning and going, it's not normal to have a migraine first thing in the morning, at least for me, and have it 3 days in a row and go to see my
it is a
chiropractor.
classic symptom of high blood pressure, though.
Exactly. And I didn't know that until I went to see my chiropractor, and he said, let's do your blood pressure. And my chiropractor is a triathlete,
Right?
and I trust him a lot. And he said, "Yeah, you've got high blood pressure." And I said, "No, no, that's not possible." And he goes, "Well, let's do it again." And it came back, it was the same thing. He says, "Well, you're gonna have to get this shit under control." And
Yeah.
I said, "Where do I start?" And that was part of those things that where you're going, "Okay, that's a bit of
Let
a
me
way."
ask you a question on this. In your life, you've probably had a lot of doctor's visits. What percentage of them did they check your weight and check your blood pressure?
I think all of them.
Really? My
Yeah,
experience has been the opposite.
yeah. I would have expected that with the way you asked the question, but
Until my recent doctor, my experience has been quite the opposite.
yeah. Well, yeah, mine they have checked those, but I'm also checking it all the time as well, right? So I'm sure, like you, I've got a blood. I'm looking at it right now. It's sitting on the other side of the room, but I have a blood pressure cuff that I do 2 to 3 times a week,
Yeah.
and I do my weight every morning. I don't look at the scale because it's Bluetooth. Because there's another technological thing. So sometimes I won't
You
look at
can
the.
automate shit.
Yeah, well, I don't look at the number right then and there sometimes because I know it's
Yeah.
going to be higher, but it is measured because I use that Fitbit app that measures the thing, so I can go back and take a look at it if I wanted to. But sometimes I want to kid myself and not look at it, but it is recorded.
I'm just going to hand over my gadget crown to you, man. You've got me beat.
No,
Yeah.
no, but it's a
I
good
want one of these
conversation.
scales now. Again, Lisa birthday coming up.
Yeah,
So
it's getting expensive, Lisa.
I like that idea of the scale. The problem is if I have a Bluetooth scale, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to take the step further and have it automatically published to my blog or something.
Yeah,
So no, I mean it's good that you're in that mindset of constantly measuring, and you know from life as a businessman that you get what you measure. Like I'm sure you mentioned you work in the auto industry, so I mean how rigorously do they track quotas and how many leases did we do this month, and because
hourly,
you get what you measure.
hourly,
Yeah, you get what you measure.
and the people that I work with are coming back and reporting to me and saying, this is where we are as of 3 o'clock. This is where we are at 9 o'clock. And we all look at those numbers all of the time. So when you mentioned
Right.
Google Sheets, I mean, the people that work with me laugh at me sometimes just because everything we do is measured on a Google Sheet and tracked and trended and monitored and
Exactly.
reviewed. But at the end of the day, when you're going, like I did this afternoon, we looked at the numbers from 2022 at the end of April and said, okay, we're 4% higher than we were a year ago on the same date at the same time. It's just measuring and monitoring those things and saying, did the improvements we put in place make a difference? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's that's the interesting part about business and maybe for health is the things that you're doing now that make a difference in the long run. And you talked about habits. Um,
Yes.
I believe very strongly in the book that James Clear wrote about habits. When you put a habit in place, it becomes a ritual. When it becomes a ritual, it makes all the difference. And there's a lot of times you don't even think about what you're doing because it's a habit that you put in place 8 months ago that you probably never did before. But once you
Right.
now make that a ritual that just happens automatically, that's when you start seeing those incremental small gains that make all the difference. And that's part of the health thing as well.
And not a new idea, right? Like you go back to ancient Greece, we are therefore what we repeatedly do. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a 2,000-year-old idea,
exactly.
right? And it's still true today because it's how we're wired. So, another way to look at that is fake it till you make it,
Exactly.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I don't know how to be the fitness guy, and I don't know how to be the buff bodybuilder guy, and I don't know how to eat healthy. But I mean, I'll just follow what someone else does who's obviously healthy, and then you'll just get good because now you're doing it. And then the next meal you're making a little bit better because you realize what you screwed up on the last meal. You faked it till you maked it.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
believe
there's nothing
strongly.
wrong with that.
That's one of the beautiful things about YouTube because you can do a search for one thing similar to how I found you, and you can learn so much. Now, granted, I think there's a lot of times that you have to be very careful because not everything's as accurate as it can be. But if you find that motivating, and I have a saved part of YouTube, but I have motivational videos that sometimes when I'm having a challenging day, keeping discipline, I'll go and watch that.
Yeah,
And but those kind of things what you do that you do learn from other people can really be beneficial.
absolutely. And again, I want to refer to that interview that I was on this morning because we got into that. And I said one of the things I had to do during the lockdown was I learned I had to put my mind on a diet.
That's a
So
good way to look at it.
while I was trying to not feed my body junk food, I was mentally indulging in the equivalent with too much excessive videos about politics and other things that would annoy me. And I was like, well, what would happen if I only watched videos from guys training and guys trying to run further and guys
Yes.
like trying to lose weight? And so I literally went and deleted all my subscriptions on YouTube. On my personal channel that I actually watch YouTube with, I deleted them all
Right.
and I just started fresh. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I want to learn better habit forming. And that's when I came across that James Clear guy. Um, quite quite later. I actually was well on my journey when I came across it. It was more like confirming what I'd figured out than
Yes.
discovering something new with that. But I mean, just and it's always like if I start to derail, one of the signs I've become self-aware of is now I'm spending more than let's say an hour a day listening to those old things,
Hmm.
right? I'm spending more than an hour a day doing that, um, and that so I'm like, hey, okay, now I know I'm going down, I'm drifting off the path.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I'm very much the same way.
yeah,
And it's that rabbit hole of getting lost in stuff. It's like eating ice cream. You really like it and you really enjoy it, and I really
yeah,
do. But sometimes you got to stop yourself and say, it's this rabbit hole of information. Sometimes it's not beneficial, and there's so many other good things that you could be ingesting at the same time that are motivating.
yeah.
And it's funny. I also take a lot of interest in cross.
Oh, we got someone pronouncing your pill in chat. I just
Oh,
noticed it.
thank you.
Thank you, hamster.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, thank you.
When you if you're interested in a musician and then you see their lifestyle, I find it interesting when you see interests that cross. And just a quick little example of that would be I love Tim McGraw, great
Yeah,
musician, but he's also written a great book on fitness and health and eating and
yeah,
nutrition. And when you see those two things cross, or certain athletes that do a tour of their fridge, and you find that motivating because they open their fridge and they got the same stuff in their fridge as you do, and you're going, wow, that's really interesting. And that's just another little life hack that I find interesting, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have the same challenges. And when you find someone that's gone through the same challenges as you are and what they've done, I like to take that information away and apply that to myself. And it's just another day that makes things that much more interesting.
It's reinforcing.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to let you field this question on the screen. Can you read it?
Have you, I got to put my glasses on.
Have you guys found a habit or practice that strongly correlates to an improvement in your gadget data?
I find that I evaluate it first thing in the morning, and I look at my sleep score, my activity score, all of those things, and that kind of sets me off in the path throughout the day, and then I don't look at it again. So I somewhere along the line, I came across someone that talked about your power hour, and we all have different hours where we're focused on ourselves. Mine's first thing in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
If I set myself up properly within a day, and I almost think I've accomplished everything that I want to do before I even get to work,
Yeah.
personally, then anything else that comes throughout the day can't corrode the things that I wanted to do for myself.
Right.
That to me is one of those things, and it starts with looking at my sleep score, because it also measures your HRV and your heart rate and all those kind of things. So that would be one of those things that I find that's technologically related, but it's also directly related to the improvement of my health.
Right. So, Hamster, why don't you throw in if you found something like that? And I'm going to speak on this because the one thing that the unexpected, like I knew this when I got my Apple Watch 6, I knew I was going to get like a lot of data. And I'm sort of like the kind of guy, I'll set a boundary. You just let me know if I go outside of it. I'm not going to check the graph every day, but if I deviate out of this boundary, then I want you to tell me, because I don't want to micromanage it. I'd just rather be, it warn me if I go outside the margins, and I'll look at a weekly summary, and I'm happy with that, right? But the thing I found with the Apple Watch was it was giving me these little trophies for meeting my daily goals.
Yes, correct.
And that shit just makes my day every time. It just makes my day. It's like someone giving you a little attaboy, good job. You know, it's like it reminds me when I'm at the gym, and you just really push a lot of weight, and there's another huge guy at the other end of the room, and he was watching you when you're done, and he's like, way to go. It's like it feels like that, but it's constantly coming out of your watch. So although it's not data, it's highly motivating. And then when I go through my health app and I see all the little medals that have built up, like hundreds of these little medals. I mean, I'm quite proud of this ridiculous little collection of icons that's built up in my Apple Watch. And they're only there because, again, I've set like realistic goals, and it's reminding me you've hit your goals for today. And I've never had it where I feel like, oh, I got my little trophy, I can stop today now. Like, it's just never happened. So it's been quite the opposite.
So with Strava, we call those kudos.
Kudos. Okay.
Kudos. So when somebody sees you did a ride, they just give you a little kudo, and you calculate the amount of kudos that you get throughout your ride. I'm plugging in my charger, so if I'm off screen for 2 seconds, that's just
no problem.
Plugging this in.
Let's see. Hamster is coming back. Deep breathing exercise to increase the oxygen sat during sleep for me. Yeah, good. That's one thing with the wearables. People are now paying attention to these vital signs, and they're called vital signs for a reason, that they weren't watching in the past, right? So one of them is your oxygen saturation, your VO2 max. I mean, I love my VO2 max. It's still saying that I'm below average. I know I'm not, but it's because I have a slow heart rate, so it thinks I'm below average, right? But that's not what matters. What matters is you see the trend line. You see, after 3 months, there's that nice even line that you're climbing, that you're improving. And so that's what motivates me. And maybe it's because I spent so long as a data analyst. I like to see the trend. I'm always focused on the trend line. I'm not worried about the 3-day rolling average or the 5-day. I'm looking at the bigger trends, right? And of course, if I see a dip, I want to know what caused the dip. But I'm not too concerned about it because there will always be dips. I'm more concerned with the rolling average. So kudos to you back, Hamster. Thank you. And thanks for watching the show today, and thanks for jumping in. That was a good question. We
Great.
love our gadgets around here. I installed a gadget cam 2 weeks ago for the live stream. I can point it at my desk and show off gadgets. So we love our gadgets. Steve, I don't want to be rude about your time. Are you okay for time to keep talking a bit?
I'm good. I just want to make sure I've plugged this in. This is not my laptop. This is my son's.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure I plugged in the right thing.
Yeah.
So
No problem.
if I just wouldn't want you to think that I turned off when I didn't.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
I think
sounds
I
like you plugged it in. I heard the little happy sound.
Yeah. So
you just got a kudos from your laptop.
Exactly. So
that's great. Yeah, no, I'm gonna check out Strava, man. I'm sold on giving it a try. That's for sure. There's like, I know Android has an ecosystem. They're obviously, in my mind, they're playing catch up. But the way technology jumps ahead, I'm sure at some point they're gonna like take the lead for a while. So really, it's what if you have an ecosystem that you're into, just maximize it. Right? Like, don't throw out all the Android and go Apple. I would never. Maximize the ecosystem you're in, because I will bet whatever you're doing, there is stuff you can put on autopilot now with only a little bit of extra effort, right? Like you did with your scale, like I mean, with the ring, these things are an investment in your health, and what is your health worth? If I said to someone like myself 2.5, 3 years ago, hey, I'm going to make you healthy. You can run 10Ks. Your AFib's not going to bother you. It's going to cost you 10K. Fuck. Take my money.
Exactly.
Take my money. So what have I've gone through 2 Apple Watches now, and a couple of heart rate monitors, and some shoes that were really the same price as other shoes. I just shopped carefully. And I have all this metrics, and I can monitor, and I can achieve my goals. So don't be afraid to invest in your health a bit, people. Don't feel selfish about it, really.
No.
People need you in their life. They need you to live longer.
Well, what else would you like? The way I look at it is, you invest in certain things, but at the end of the day, the returns are so much higher than the other things that you could invest that money with. And it's funny when you mention, you're talking about certain people. The people that I work with that smoke, I've never smoked, so I said to them, "What's a pack of cigarettes cost?" And they said, "Well, a carton's X amount of dollars," and we calculated it's $800 a month. I'm going,
it's crazy.
$800 a month. Do you know what you could put that money towards on any facet of your life if you invested? If you bought,
it's still cheaper than using our toll roads, but
well, you got a point there too. But it's just, at the end of the day, the money really. We're all going to be sensitive to it at some time or another, but that investment that you get by whatever you may do, if it's joining a gym, buying a bike, buying the clothes, any of those things, it's so much worth more than the other things of not doing it. Because the piece of this that
even your CrossFit gym probably costs more than like joining World's Gym.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
But it keeps you motivated to go, and that's priceless.
It is priceless.
It's priceless. Just to have that. And I get that from functional strength. I love it when I go there. There's a couple other guys there. We're all going hard and grunting and just doing our own shit. And we're not working out together, but we're there together.
Certainly.
And if I need a spot, they're happy to spot me, right? If I need a little tip, the guy will film it and we'll look at it together and we'll give each other tips. I mean, that's priceless. And that membership costs me more than some other gyms, and the equipment's rougher and the building's not as fancy. Who gives a shit? That's not worth anything to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's how you leave when you leave and how you feel about it and getting motivated to come back the next time.
That's
is
right.
What I think what you're paying for.
Yeah. And the other benefit is they let me film there. Not all gyms let me do that.
Well, that's good to hear.
So, well, that's good, man. And so you are an example to me. Like, I see that picture of you. You're holding the bike over your head. I just love that picture. What's that about? Was that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So what that is, I have done the Ride to Conquer Cancer, which is, and you and I both live in Southern Ontario. The Ride to Conquer Cancer is from Toronto to Niagara Falls. It's about.
It's a good ride.
Yeah, it's 220 kilometers over 2 days. So we stop in Hamilton, and their logo has been for the last, this is the 16th year, a guy holding his bike above his head. So that picture that I sent you, if you look behind it, is their logo with me
Yeah.
reenacting their logo, which a lot of people do. And
Right.
it's a cancer fundraiser, and it's one of those things that it's early in the year because they don't want it to be too hot, but it's also early in the year, so you have to be training throughout the spring and late winter to be prepared for it,
Right.
on a lot of different levels. And maybe another time we could talk about supplements, like we talked about LMT one day, about taking sodium, magnesium, and
Yeah.
potassium, and how that has an effect on the.
I bought the LMT,
Yes.
and I just find for me it's the way it tastes doesn't agree with me. It's just too much salt, and I tried
Yes.
watering it down, but all I can taste is the salt.
Salt.
But having said that, I'm a grown man, and when I train for my half and I'm doing my longer runs out in the heat, it's probably exactly what I need.
It very well could. And I'll buy what you don't use. Let me put it to you that way.
I'll use it.
Okay. Well, if you don't,
Yeah.
I will.
Doesn't
But
have to, I mean, food is fuel. Food is fuel. If you stop making it pleasure and start looking at it as fuel, and so it's just going to be. So I didn't like the taste, but having said that, the ingredients seem top notch. So I'm going to go with it.
when
You
you
know,
run, do you ever have issues of cramping?
I let me tell you about running and hydration. I noticed by looking at the autopsies and stuff. What he noticed was these guys were drinking Gatorade at every station, and the guys who tend to hydrate more were far more likely to keel over than the guys who hydrated less. And when they did the autopsy, they found that all this stuff in the Gatorade, or I don't want to pick on Gatorade, but all the electrolytes weren't actually being absorbed during the run. They were concentrating in the stomach. The salt and the electrolytes were concentrating in the stomach, but the water was entering your bloodstream. So now you were getting low sodium, even though you were taking sodium, and low electrolytes, even though you're taking electrolytes, because they were concentrating in your gut. Because when you're working out at that level, your digestive system switches up, right, and tries to preserve. Um, so he developed a protocol where they actually put the person on the table and they raise their legs up, right, and
Hmm.
that saved a lot of lives. And but he's gone into, so he wrote a book called Waterlogged. You can get it on Kindle, and it's a great read. He really gets into it, and it's a
Yeah.
really eye-opening book. So since then, I and I used to run when I was boxing like 10 years ago. I would do long runs. I've done a half marathon out in the woods, and I don't drink. I'll drink an hour or two before the run. I'll have my salt load the day before, but during the run, I don't bring water. When I do a 10K, I don't bring any water with me at all. But when I did my half marathon, my first half marathon like 12 years ago, I brought a water pack, and I didn't drink until mile 10.
Hmm.
About 10 minutes after I started drinking, cramp, cramp, cramp. And
After
so,
you started
I
drinking.
don't get any cramps when I run. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, and I don't bring liquid with me. I hydrate before the run,
Right.
and I salt load well before the run. The other thing too is now that I'm older, if I drink a lot, I have to use the bathroom more, and I hate that when I'm out running. So that's another reason. But most people greatly overestimate their need for hydration during endurance exercise. They greatly overestimate their need.
Hmm.
And this book will really illustrate that, and you'll look at your hydration strategy a whole new way.
Yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah,
take a
you
look at it.
absolutely will. Now he focused on running, but I don't imagine there's a whole lot of difference with
I wouldn't
cycling,
think
and
so.
I'm sure you'll find people in both camps, right?
Yeah.
Everything's a little divisive when you start getting into this stuff. But
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
agree with you. So,
let's see. We got a Novo Lamas. Have you ever seen an exercise game called Swift? Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
yeah,
You can connect a bike trainer and you can ride with other people online from home. It's neat. Uploads your workouts to Strava too.
yeah. When I talked to you about doing the crits, which is a
Yeah,
short bike race,
yeah,
it's all done on Zwift. So I did Zwift yesterday morning.
yeah.
Um, uh, I highly, highly, highly recommend it, specifically living where we do when you can't ride for a minimum of 4 months throughout the year.
Yeah.
And it's great to come home after work and get in a ride or get in a race, and it's highly addictive.
There are some gyms now that have it on their exercise equipment so you can log into your Zwift account
Right.
at the gym,
Interesting.
which is kind of cool.
It is
The
cool.
more expensive gym, the really expensive gym in Burlington, they have that. I didn't, but I use Zwift because I have a treadmill at home, and I
Yes.
didn't like the program that came with the treadmill. So I tried Zwift when I was first really heavy, and I was doing, like, let's say 2 minutes of jogging and then 4 minutes walk, and that's where I was at. And I tried the Zwift, and the problem with the Zwift I had at the time was that because my jogging speed was so low, it would always show me as walking on the screen, and I
Yes.
just hated that because no, I'm running. Like,
Yes.
I
Exactly.
hated that. So I'm willing to. I should probably give it a try to switch things up again, because now it would show me running. So maybe
Yeah.
I just got to try it out again. Um, but for me, it's like it's a barrier to entry. If I during the day I'm gonna go do a 4 mile run on my treadmill, I just want to get on there and start. I don't want to have to set things up. Like right now, I just get on, start my playlist, start my app. My shoes automatically track everything, and I'm good, right? So in some ways, it's really what your groove is. I need a low barrier entry to be consistent. So if I have to log into a bunch of stuff, I don't
Well,
mind setting it up one time, but I need it just really quick and automatic after.
well, to be honest with you, with Zwift, it's one button. You
Is it?
open
Yeah.
the window, you hit start. It then syncs your heart rate monitor. It does exactly what you'd want it to do.
I think that was the thing, though, because I was trying to put it on my laptop because I still wanted my Map My Fitness on my phone, because that to me is my Bible of my progress, because I have so much history.
Yeah.
In fact, I have Map My Fitness workouts from 12 years ago when I used to run,
Right.
and I don't want to lose that, right?
You wouldn't
Yeah,
wouldn't you being as technically oriented as you are. Oh, my dog decided to come in. If he barks, it's
It's all good, man.
okay.
All good.
Okay, Ted. Thank you. Can you go out, please? Go out. So, anyway, Zwift is wonderful. I love every minute of it. It's very easy to use,
Yeah.
and you would never have an issue. And if you and I ever meet again face to face, I would show you how to set it up, because I've run with it as well. And I do my cycling, so it's just
Hey.
there's a toggle between
Hey,
the two.
dude, just do a 3-minute YouTube video and show us.
Well, exactly. So there's one other thing that you alluded to that might be a good conversation for another time, when we talked about keeping motivated. I'd love to have a conversation one day about what music keeps you motivated when you're listening to Spotify.
That's funny because I have that playlist on Spotify public.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. What's it called?
I'll send it to you. Let's see. I've since switched to a different playlist, but I have it. I have my Big Northern Bear playlist. Getting it out. Give me a minute. I think it's called Better Than Yesterday. I think that's the one I made public.
Perfect. Well, I'll look that one up for
Yeah,
sure.
because I've got like Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue, Yankee Rose, Lit Up by Buck Cherry, Good Feeling by Flo Rida, Just Like Paradise, David Lee Roth. Like,
yeah.
It's a kicking playlist for running. Like, it's the whole thing. I got my Netflix, of course,
Yes.
that started the show with. Yeah. So, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share it over to you.
Yeah, that's a great conversation, and I love David Lee Roth, and I love Motley Crue for working out.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure,
but
man. They
I've
get
been
me
listening-
pumped.
It keeps you going. It keeps you going. So no, that's a good conversation. I was once in a Zwift ride
Yep.
that Lance Armstrong had a group ride with. So with that, you could log on to
Isn't that amazing, eh?
yeah, but there's a part Discord. I don't know if you're familiar with Discord, but
Did
it's
he have to, like, just use one foot to make it fair? Or?
no, it was no, but it was cool because he was in Aspen. He was in his garage up top, and he was on Zwift, and you ride with him. But with Discord, you could talk just like we're talking.
Right.
So I asked him, like, what do you listen to when you're working out? And one of the things he said was Rush, which I thought was cool, being
Nice.
a Canadian band. And Neil Peart was from St. Catharines, which is where I live, and I got to meet him a couple times.
Wow.
But it is interesting, again, when you go back to that commonality between people that are working out. Somebody could be Lance Armstrong, somebody could be Tim McGraw, but at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing at the same time, and it's good to have motivating music. And what motivates you is always something I find pretty fascinating, because at the end of the day, if you're into a 45-minute ride or run or whatever that may be, that next song that can come on, which sometimes you mentioned Buck Cherry, would be a great song to keep you going. And the one
just gets you fired up.
It does, and it just keeps you motivated.
I use that when I did my 10K in Oakville in October, which was like sort of the 1 year anniversary of me getting in shape. I had the playlist and I actually had sort of rehearsed. Okay, I should be when I hear this song, I know I'm a mile out, and
Yeah.
now I can just give whatever I've got left.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
used my playlist like this. So I actually trained with my playlist. So I would do a 5K and pause the playlist and pick it up on the next 5K so I could like time it out. And I'll probably do the same strategy when I do the half marathon. I'll probably because it's if you use the same playlist over and over, right? And you always start it on the same song, it almost becomes a coach
Sure.
of your pace,
Yes.
right?
I agree.
So yeah, so it's really good that way. And if you like the music, and I don't know about biking, but for running, you definitely want a beat that's close to your cadence.
Yes.
It really helps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's fascinating because you mentioned Kickstart My Heart, and that is the start of my playlist.
yeah,
Because it's a good song to get you going, but I just think it's ironic when you say it, especially for guys like you and I who have AFib.
for me that's near the end. I want that song coming on when I can see the finish line. That's when I want to hear Kickstart My Heart.
Good for you, man. That's great.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, interesting. And David Lee Roth, of course. I mean, you ever want to get pumped, just go watch a few David Lee Roth, like Yankee Rose music video.
Yeah.
Like, just go watch that guy, man. That guy was psycho. And he's on YouTube now. He's like doing his kung fu and shit on YouTube now.
Yeah, I know.
And he's still brutally in shape.
Yes.
Talk about 80's the new 40. David Lee Roth, man.
He's fantastic. Well, again,
everyone goes on about Keith Richards living forever. No, David Lee Roth.
Yeah, all of those guys. Yeah. Well, Keith Richards is another story altogether, but I like the guys that have done it through fitness.
Yeah.
And not just being lucky they're still around, like, Keith Richards.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually don't mind. I thought when I turned 30, I actually cried because I felt like, as you're a younger man, when you're growing up, you're like, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to have accomplished this and this and this and this. Hadn't done any of it. And I was so depressed. And now at 50, I felt, like I felt like, again, so depressed because I had the fucking pandemic, had the AFib start. I mean, all I had was my powerlifting, and now with AFib, I felt like that was taken from me. And now I just feel I'm looking forward to it all. Like everyone who sees me says, you look 5 years younger. People tell you that you look younger?
Mm-hmm.
That you haven't seen in a while?
Yep.
You're de-aging.
Or people look at you and go, wow, what'd you do? Did you lose weight? And you go, yeah, I did. And it's a compliment, and you never want to really focus too much on it, but that's another little kudo throughout the day.
There are guys selling all kinds of elixirs to make you younger and supplements, but really, if you don't have the basics in place, your diet, your exercise, those aren't going to help you. And if you do have those in place, you might not need those things.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would add sunlight to the list.
Yes.
Of things people don't get enough of. And I want to, we've been on a while now, so I want to make sure that we cover this.
Okay.
Sleep apnea.
Yes.
Do you have any history of that?
So I had a sleep study done in December. It was December 22nd of 2022. So it was almost 6 months ago. When I met with the doctor back in March, which was online, he goes, yeah, borderline sleep apnea. He said, if you wanted to look into it, we could do CPAP. And I said, you know what? I definitely think there'll be a day when I need that, but I really would like to lose another 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. So he goes, okay, so why don't you do that? And then let's do it again December of this year, because you can only do one a year and get it covered by OHIP from what I was told. He said, so let's reevaluate it when you get at a weight where you're comfortable with, because I'm still not at the weight that I want to be at. I mean, I'm definitely much improved, but I'd like to do it in December of this year and see if I need that. So yes, it is on my radar, but it's not something I feel like I need immediately.
Yeah, these guys, they just won't retest me.
Yeah, you told me that.
They just won't retest me. They don't want to lose a customer. I had to rig my machine to do my own test.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
just think that's fascinating.
They just won't get back to me. I don't know. My cardiologist put in another referral. My doctor, I've called a few times. I just got tired of nagging, and I know they got wait lists through the pandemic and that. I'm just tired of asking.
Yeah.
And but before I published my sleep apnea video last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, I actually pulled the machine out, dusted it off. It needed a lot of dust removed, and I tested myself because I'm like, I can't put out this video saying how I fix my sleep apnea when I haven't tested in like a year.
Right.
So I didn't feel right. So I took it out. I set it down to the lowest possible setting. I still had a score of 0. So no apnea based on my amateur opinion and what the machine says.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because I do want to make this comment. So your podcasts, that was one of your podcasts that I've now subscribed to. And I did listen to that. And that's where I remember when I said you told me about it, it wasn't a conversation you and I had. It was because I was now listening to your podcast, which I think you need to remind everybody on this that you now have that because that's pretty cool. That
I do have Ticker Talks. I've had to change the name from Cardiac Conversations. Turns out there's a podcast by that name.
Okay.
That hasn't published in 4 years, but the problem is anytime you Google for it, you end up with them instead of with me. So I thought I'm only 3 episodes in. I'm going to change the name to Ticker Talks. I'm actually going to go back to our friend here, Noble Lama. He's going to have to re-record a little bit of the intro for me to change the name. But and I have the website tickertalks.ca now, and if you go to bignorthernbear.com, it forwards to that. And on this website, I have all the feeds. So the podcast, I like automation, right? So the podcast automatically publishes on the website.
Right.
All my YouTube videos automatically publish to the website when I upload them to YouTube. I have a blog, and in the blog, I'll write some supplementary stuff that isn't worth a whole video, but then I'll embed a relevant video of mine in the blog. I put my supplement store there, so I've got it all housed now in a more permanent home. And so you can go to bignorthernbear.com and you can just find everything I do. You can sign up for my email alerts. You can listen to my podcast where Noble Lama does a great voiceover. Probably keep using his voice for years. And the podcast was a way for me. Sometimes I just don't feel like being on camera, but I feel like I want to get something out. And I also feel like there's a whole section of AFIBers I'm missing. They're not on YouTube, but they are on podcasts because podcasts is a huge place.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't watch YouTube and listen to a podcast. You're doing one or the other. So I'm like, well, I'm doing the content. So if I just wrote my script a little different, and then when I edit the video, it's just a quick edit to also spin out the podcast.
Right.
So I'm trying to double up my time. Right? So a YouTube video like, let's say the sleep apnea video with all the B-roll, I didn't even put my face in it. Took me about 12 to 14 hours to put together for YouTube, and then an extra 20 minutes to spit out the podcast. That's a good use of time.
Great use of time.
And I'm going to take this interview, and I'll probably spit it out into an episode.
Cool.
Or at least chunks of this, right? And I did it with interview Dave the Ultra Runner. I turned that into an episode quite easily.
Can you and I go to the Caymans to do our next one?
Yeah, I mean, if you can find someone to pay your way like I did.
Oh, did you?
Well, work paid my way. Technically, our head office is there. So
I don't think my head office
because honestly, if I had to pay, I'd probably be in the Dominican because Cayman is a really pricey place.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah, it's a very expensive place because the way they do their taxes. So the price of everything, the tax is built in. So everything's expensive, but there's no income tax. So it has its upside, I guess, if you live there. But it's beautiful. Everything in Cayman is top notch.
It looked
Everything
gorgeous.
is top notch.
Yeah. Well, you still have a good tan from there.
Yeah. Well, I use a tanning booth still.
There you go.
Yeah. I want to maintain.
Oh, you look good.
And I am part native, and that makes it really easy for me to tan.
Well, I look very pasty on this video tonight. Maybe next time we can do it when I have a little bit of color.
Well, you'll be out riding and cycling and getting a lot of color. And I think we have to get together in person now. I have another subscriber who reached out to me today who lives in Grimsby.
Okay.
I'm like, well, the three of us should all just get together and
That'd be
build a
great.
little local group. So I'm going to get a group on WhatsApp of all the local AFIBers. So anyone out there, if you're in the Hamilton, Burlington area, reach out to me. We'll add you to the local WhatsApp group, and we can have the odd get together for coffee or something like that, and
That'd be
just shoot. Yeah, all AFIBers can just shoot
Well,
the
it's
shit.
funny that you mentioned coffee because that's one of the things us AFibers can't drink like me.
Yeah,
Or
I
with
have
decaf.
no problem with coffee. I've tried
Yeah.
eliminating it, made no difference, but
Yeah.
it's very subjective. Unlike alcohol, which is bad for every AFib.
Yeah.
I mean, but the more important thing is you figure that out about yourself.
Yes. Well, I've experimented with it, and that's another little piece of this. Similar to yourself, I have removed it as of right now. I don't know for sure because I did more than one thing at the same time. But I
Right.
think at the end of the day, I'm not having palpitations, which I did think was caused by caffeine. I feel better with it, and because I drink decaf now, I don't really miss it. And another thing that I found, and I really loved drinking a Corona when it was after a long distance ride, and you'd like to kick back and have a beer.
Yeah.
They make the best non-alcoholic beer that I've had. It's called
Really?
Sun Brew 0.0,
Okay.
and I couldn't tell the difference between the two if you put a lime in it.
Wow. I've been having Sober Carpenter. I've been enjoying that
I,
non-alcoholic beer. Very
is
good.
it, yeah, I had that
IPA,
one.
very good IPA.
Yeah, I had that once, and I thought it was really good as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I still like when I'm socializing, I want to have that beer in my hand. They sell Heineken Zero literally
yeah,
everywhere now, at least,
yeah,
so I can fall back on that. So it's good.
yeah. But that's a really good, interesting point that sometimes I feel uncomfortable not having a beer in my hand in a social setting, which is crazy when you actually stop and think about it. But I feel the same way.
Yeah,
So
but having that zero alcohol alternative, I mean, to me, that's not a crutch.
I agree.
If you like the taste of beer, drink the freaking zero beer.
Yeah,
You know.
I
So
went to the Jays game a couple weeks ago. We rented like a limo van.
yeah,
There's 20 of us. Every one of them drank alcoholic beer, and I said, "Hey, why don't you get me some of this Corona stuff?" And it was great. So
my
I
wife
really,
loves it. My wife loves it. She hasn't had to be the driver home from a wedding since I got AFib.
it's just a win-win.
It's a win-win. Yeah, so built-in designated driver, so you get invited everywhere.
Exactly.
Well, this is. I listen, man. I think we could go on another hour, but I don't think that's prudent. Um, but I would say, Steve. I mean, you're just to recap. When you're in AFib, it's not as brutal as, but you spend more time in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you spend more time in it. Um, do
Months
you
on end.
find do you find the amount of time you're spending in AFib is trending downward?
Yes, absolutely. Because of the two drugs that I can never remember the name of, but your
Yeah.
friend's been able to help me out with. So definitely it's been trending down. But you're right. I never get to a point where, and maybe you and I can have this conversation when we have a coffee, but I've never been in a situation where I'm sitting at 72 and 3 minutes later I'm at 150 and I haven't done anything differently.
Right.
I only really have the the out of rhythm heart rate and palpitations and the notifications that I'm in AFib. So as I said to my cardiologist, if I have to live that being this way for the rest of my life, I'm more than comfortable to do that as long as I now know all of the what to expect when
And
I
so you're not on a blood thinner?
no.
I find that odd if you're in
So
AFib
I'll
that
tell you
early, to be honest.
why I'm not. I requested not to be
Okay.
because I do a fair amount of mountain biking, like I did last night by myself.
Hmm.
And the chances of having an accident on a mountain bike
Pretty high.
pretty high, and bleeding is not a big deal. But if I would never want to be in a situation where I was on a blood thinner and bled out because of the fact that I was on a blood thinner when I really didn't have to be.
Yeah.
So that may change when I meet with
Oh
my
no, you gotta just assess the risk, and there's no clear cut answer for any of this shit, right? It's all
yeah.
risk reward analysis.
Yeah. So right
Yeah.
now I'm more than comfortable with what I'm at what I'm doing, and I'm comfortable with that. That may change.
I would say if that's the case, then do you give blood?
I'm scared to give blood for some reason. I don't like it.
Will you go give blood with me?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't like giving blood. It
Okay.
freaks me out, but
I
I
just
have
thought
to
I'd
do it.
ask. I'm
I
trying to
have.
promote it.
It's one of those phobias that I have that I got to get over because at the end of the day, I
If
should, but
if
I
you ever
gotta.
want to go, I will go with you.
I really appreciate that, and you're a prince for saying that. That may not happen.
I would just say, as an AFibber, you might need that blood one day.
Well, that's a different way to look at it. So maybe I should. But at the end, I just get. I
It's a
have a
karma
phobia.
investment.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. I do have. I actually have a friend of mine who takes blood.
Yeah.
She comes to my house and she does my blood here, but I have to wear headphones
Right.
and I have to wear something over my eyes. So, because I have a real phobia about it, and I don't know what it is. But maybe the next time you and I talk, I'll get that
Well, what
treated.
they need to do is they need to find a way they can do it while you're doing Zwift.
Exactly. That stuff would be the best thing ever. I don't know
Yeah.
why we don't do that. That's the way to do it.
Well, that's my kick. If you have to pick a cause, the cause I'm pitching in for is people who can give blood should give blood. And the other thing is, giving blood actually reduces your chance of stroke. And so if you're
Well,
not on blood thinner and you're AFibbing, that's one way to reduce your risk of stroke.
well, I'm glad I listened to this podcast slash YouTube video because that's something I learned that I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also, if you get into the longevity forums, the old dudes,
Yeah.
they they see it as like an oil change. They feel like it's a longevity thing too. So there's a lot going for it. There's a
Well,
lot going for giving blood.
I appreciate you saying that because I didn't know any of those things, and that's another reason why I need to do it. I just have to get my head around it.
Think about it.
I will.
Meditate on it.
I will for sure.
Yeah. So Steve, I would just say I like to have my guests take us out.
Okay.
So think back to a couple years ago when your heart started doing this stuff and you found out you had AFib, and maybe you needed to hear some words of motivation to help you get going. So I give you the chance to share those words of motivation out there now. Looking back on all you learned last few years, what would you say to that new AFibber? They're in midlife. They've had this happen to them unfairly. It always feels unfair. What would
I
you say to that person?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's wonderful, and I would like to say the following things. This is an opportunity for you to invest in yourself, and it has to become a priority in your life. And from my experience, there's nothing. I've met so many different people that say, "Yeah, it's very common. People have it. You just have to make those lifestyle changes, which you have made, Danny, in your life to make things better." And this is the wake up call that you need. And at the end of the day, it's very common. If Joe Biden has it, and it's a pretty common thing. And I like to look at things from a positive point of view. That if this is the issue that I'm going to have with my heart that can be managed through a lot of different things, this is the one that I'll take because
Yeah.
I can put the time and effort into it to manage it to get to a better place. And with modern technology that's coming along, it's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be concerned of, but it is something that you do have to focus on and use this as your opportunity to say, my time to focus on me is now. What are we going to do and where am I going to spend my time to reduce the risks that this can cause, which everyone would be aware of if you have it. But technology is great.
It's funny how everyone I have on has come to that same conclusion that I'm actually lucky that I've got a condition I can do something.
Exactly. That's exactly the way to look at it.
Yeah. So this is see it as an opportunity. It's hard when it's first upon you and you're like, why me? Especially, I mean, I feel really bad. I sometimes get these guys that are like 20. I'm fit. I work out. I train. Do you know why I have to deal with this? And I don't know why. I don't. But I can just show you videos of me powerlifting and me running.
Yeah.
And now you and my friend Dave and said, and you get on with life, man. Because if it didn't throw this curveball at you, it would have thrown a different one.
Absolutely.
So this is just the curveball you got.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And people don't die of AFib. They die of something else because they ignored their AFib.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, listen, well, just before we wrap up, I just want to congratulate you again on 1,000 subscribers. That's fascinating. What's the farthest away that you know of that listens to your information?
Well, thanks to Google Analytics, I've been listened to in pretty much every country.
That's great.
But the countries that are English speaking, obviously more so. So Australia and New Zealand and um, uh, Thailand. I have sold T-shirts in Ireland.
Great.
So they bought, to sponsor an episode, you can buy one of these shirts.
Right.
And if you send me a picture of you in the shirt, I list you as a sponsor of one of my live episodes. It's sort of like a fun rather than me saying, "Oh, donate to the show." No, get yourself a souvenir, and I'll give you the credit all the same, right? So I've sold a shirt in Ireland. That's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that. But it's literally a global reach, and I think now with YouTube's new feature where they're going to enable with AI. I mean, AI is going to rule us, but you could listen to me in Mandarin in real time on this live stream. That's
Really?
that's the feature that's coming.
I didn't know that.
Language is about to be irrelevant on YouTube.
Really cool.
Think of all the great shit we don't hear because it's in another language right now.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
So, we're all us English speakers about to have a whole lot more competition. But again, also access to new markets.
Yeah.
So,
and new content that we may have never heard of before.
I want to do a live stream with some guy in Thailand who's speaking his native language while I speak mine, and it's just a live stream. I literally look forward to that day.
Yeah, so do I. I think that's really interesting.
Shit's going to get interesting. Yeah, it's really going to get interesting.
Cool.
So, Steve, I picked a song to play us out that I think it's going to fire you up for your next workout. So, and I've used it a few times, but I think it's appropriate. So we're going to play that on the way out. And I just want to thank everyone who's hung in for an hour and a half with us. And I want to get to a point where I'm doing 4-hour live streams, but I'm just not there yet, folks. Sorry. I have a day job. So, Steve, you've been a great guest. We'll definitely have you back.
Love to.
And we'll talk some more. Maybe we'll do one in person in the future.
That'd be great.
And then we won't have to worry about technology at all.
I'm here for you anytime. And thank you for being the motivating factor. I watch all your content. I find it,
Thank you.
I'm very grateful to have you and have access to your information.
Okay, well, let me play us out. Let's see. I'm my own amateur producer here. So here we go.
Let's go. Yo. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket.